people of the internet, my name is Daniel K. Hargrove, also known as Daniel the DM across all corners of the internet, and today, on this roleplay breakdown, we're going to be discussing what it's like to roleplay as a martial class, and delve a little bit deeper into showing you all that even though you may or may not be able to cast spells, there is so much engagement that can be had with all of the aspects that make up a martial class in a tabletop game. And I specifically want to give a big shout out to my patrons over at patreon.com/Daniel K. Hargrove, who are watching this video early and so many other videos and getting exclusive content over at patreon.com/Daniel K. Hargrove. Again, I greatly appreciate your support. The way it's set up over there is just you pay whatever you want and whatever you feel the content is worth and that you can afford, and everybody gets access to the same amount of content. I greatly appreciate all the support that I've gotten over there. And even if you don't have anything to give, you can join for free, and there's still some exclusive content over there as well. So, gang, thanks for being cool. Shout out to my patrons. But with all that being said, let's dive into this week's episode of Roleplay Breakdown. For this, again, I will be returning to my character of Aaron Drivelhog, who is a dragonborn Eldritch Knight with, I believe now, Eldritch Knight fighter with 1 level in Wizard for narrative purposes, and that we will discuss in a little bit. But that is the character we'll be discussing. This is the character that I play on Forgotten Adventures show, Fears and Fortunes, which episodes come out every single Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, hey, twitch.tv/Forgotten Adventures. If you want to check out the show, see what I do live, you can totally do that and see me as a paid actor on the screen. But with all that being said, I think there is so much depth to be had to martial classes when it comes to your role play. And so much of it comes down to how you fight and what you fight with. Those two things alone can give you so much range and so much depth. And in where my character is at currently, last week's episode was one of the most emotional I've ever experienced at a table. It was a very heavy arc that we went through, just for the simple fact that over the course of the last 2 seasons, my character has been slowly losing his mind because of a cursed magic item. It's been making him forget things and altering his memory of past events. And so last week's episode was a culmination of all of his paranoia and all of his fear and this cursed magic item twisting his mind to the point where he engaged with PvP with the party and hurt some of his allies. So this character who I made to be incredibly powerful in combat, to dominate the battlefield, I was then using those same tactics and that same mindset against the people that my character swore to protect. I know, riveting stuff, right? And in the culmination of that moment, my party was able to free me from the bindings within my mind that were calling me to, engage in such destructive behavior. However, in doing so, I realized partway through when that scene was happening, I said, my character is going to unattune from his magic item, his magical weapon. This one isn't cursed. It's called Loyal Edge. It's a elven short sword that he was gifted, and it's a sentient magic item. And this whole entire lore related to it about those worthy to wield this weapon and swears to protect those they care about, blah, 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 blah. It's much more interesting in the show, I promise you, than the short description that I'm giving, right? But I was like, he has to unattune from that weapon, because in this moment, he doesn't feel worthy to wield it, right? Call it his Mjolnir moment, call it whatever you'd like, right? But he doesn't feel worthy to wield this weapon. What is it? I think he'll see Una bleeding, and Una's blood is on his sword. And he unchains Loyal Edge from his arm, and I think he unattunes from it.
gonna meet him on the ground and jump off the roof. I'm gonna put my flail on the ground next to me. Just begin to slowly approach him. Aaron. Aaron. It's okay.
I didn't mean to hurt anyone.
I know.
Sure.
I'm gonna put my hand on his shoulder. It's okay.
And the time since this episode has premiered, I've been on this journey of, okay, so how is he going to fight now? Right? Because it doesn't make sense for him to fight as he normally does, which is a 2-weapon wielding, whirling dervish of spell and blade on the battlefield, in your face, dominating the battlefield and going in and hacking and slashing at everything in sight, drawing all the attention. No, this man is broken. I keep making the joke saying he's punished Aaron, right? He like punished Snake. Like he is seeking some form of redemption. He is a broken shell of the man that he once was. But before we can discuss the possibilities of where I could take this character mechanically and how that affects the roleplay, I want to discuss where he was previously. When I designed Aaron, I wanted to design a character that was really strong in combat, to the point where you begin to wonder, like, what's he doing here? A part of this, low level party sort of thing, right? Same level as everyone. But I wanted to sell this idea of playing this character who continuously sold himself short in life, right? A character who continuously had the potential to be great, but wasn't, because he chose not to be, and he chose to settle, and he chose this more quieter life as a sellsword and a bodyguard in a local town, just so he'd be closer to the people that he cared about. And I had that was the idea for the character, and I wanted that to manifest the gameplay. So he has a high armor class, he's super tanky, he's a 2-weapon fighter, he's super dexterous, and I rolled really well with all of my stats. So he was just like, I think the only bad stat that I ended up having was a 9 in charisma, but everything else was incredibly high. So what I had with this character on paper, it was just like, what are you doing here? You should be doing a tryout for the Avengers. What are you doing with this party? And I always use that, again, mechanically as a manifestation of that. And that's something you have to keep in mind when you're playing a martial class, right? The weaponry that you choose is an extension of, is roleplay, right? Roleplay is not just the crying, the snotty tears running down the face, blah, 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 blah. That's not everything that's about it. It's about every decision that you make, not only in a scene, but on your character sheet that is a reflection of that character, right? So if you're playing a martial class, your choice in weapon matters. Why does your character wield a greatsword, right? Is it just because it did a lot of damage? I mean, sure, that could be a reason, but why though? What does it say about someone who wields such a massive weapon that is so obvious it's not concealable, right? As compared to someone who uses a dagger that they keep hidden upon themselves, right? For quick and fast strikes. Your choice in weaponry and the choices in the way that you fight can be an extension of your character, right? Aaron is this hulking, aggressive, protective sort of character. So that reflects within the choices that I made for his armor class, for his fighting style, etc. He wants to be the best at everything. So that's why he's got a short bow on him, or a long bow on him. He's got daggers on him. He's got a short sword. He's got a scimitar on him. He's got a pistol on him that he just got recently, So he has all of this equipment on him that, again, is a further reflection of that, right? And when he received a magic item, being Loyal Edge, that further cemented his purpose. That was an item that was gifted to me as a player from the GM. That's something that perfectly thematically fit Aaron, right? And that's one of those beautiful things that you get when you have a GM that's like George that we have, who's so cognizant of those sort of things, right? So you have this weapon for Aaron that's an extension of his personality that vibes so much with his personality, the sentient mind that's inside of the blade, right? So you have all that going on, and we had a character who did not make it past season 1, and their weapon was melted down into, I believe, a short sword and also like a chain. And I decided, okay, GM, can I spend some gold, some money to enchant this chain so that it like attaches to my gauntlet, like God of War style, right? Like Kratos style, like it attaches to my blade and into my gauntlet so that I can toss it out, and then I can use it as like a grappling hook and all these different things, and basically use it like the Blades of Chaos, right? And they were like, oh, that's a great idea. And so we've been doing different stuff with that. But that became an extension of my character in roleplay, because then that became an extension of the weight that he carries. He's literally chained to the duty that was left behind by that character that is no longer here. And that is chained to that same blade, and he carries that same weight along with him. All these choices have to do with the weapons that I'm bringing onto the battlefield, right? As a martial class, you should be treating your weaponry, your fighting style, what you do in combat, the same way that a spellcaster picks their spells. The difference between picking firebolt and picking a pike, the same difference between picking a cone of cold and picking a heavy crossbow, right? These sort of things matter, and they're so, to me personally, integral to how you can grow your character and keep a martial class interesting at all times, right? I think the 2024 version of the fighter does an amazing job. I have not been bored with this character mechanically. I really like the update to where there's so many more things that I can do now socially, because I can spend my second wind mechanic, which normally heals me, to do stuff in social encounters, and also with the investigation and all that sort of stuff. So I'm able to be more effective in all pillars of combat now, or all pillars of play, excuse me, now, because of how the class has been updated, which is great. But beyond that, these choices that we're talking about, they're further enhancing the gameplay that we're getting into, right? The story that we're getting into. So now that we have where my character has been, let's talk about where he is currently. He's unattuned from this weapon that was gifted to him that is a manifestation of his duty. He hurt the person that was supposed to be, the person that is his daughter, essentially, is his adoptive daughter, who is played wonderfully by Meadow, Howdy Love Darlin on all the social medias. Incredible Crit Award winning actress. They are beyond incredible, right? And because of that, that now puts me in an interesting spot mechanically. And I'm going to sit down more with my GM to discuss this more, but I was like, we will have to see story-wise where things land. As for right now, there's no way he feels worthy to wield such a weapon, right? He has to sit in the mid-range of combat. He doesn't have archery style, so he's gonna be less effective. He's a 2-weapon fighter. He should be in the front lines. But it just doesn't feel right, And I think I'll have him use the pistol and the chain that's wrapped around his arm as a whip. But I think that's about it for right now. And I'm purposefully nerfing myself in combat just for the simple fact that this character emotionally is not where he was. He doesn't feel like that same person. And honestly, I think he's scared of how strong he is, in the idea of that being used against the people that he cares about most. And so mechanically, I'm going to, use different weapons that keep him more at bay, keep him more off the front lines, but he'll still be that sacrificial lamb and jump in front of any attack that gets in the way of possibly harming his allies. And that's just going to be where he stands. I think that's just going to be where he stands. And I am incredibly proud of where I've taken this character. And I hope in this discussion that, you know, for those of you who are playing martial characters currently in a campaign, that this gives you some more insight of how you approach your character, right? And taking a look again at that character sheet and just try to look over everything that you have. Like, well, yeah, why do I have those caltrops? What's the deal with those caltrops? What am I doing with them, right? And just take a second to take a look at all those things and think about their place and their purpose on your sheet, at your table, what they're contributing, what's the rationale behind them, what's the history behind them and you choosing those weapons. Like my character, his firearm proficiency is directly tied to his childhood because he was taught by a mercenary. And that was the first weapon that they taught him, right? Even though he developed his own style with 2-weapon fighting, to me now that he's like this broken man, I feel like he would go back to ranged combat. He would go back to using a firearm, right? Because he feels like he has to go back to basics. It's time to go back to fundamentals. It's time to go back. I need to go back to fundamentals and relearn, right? Rebuild who I am again. And the best part is I don't know where this is going to go. I don't have a preset plan for, and then this is the moment that he has redeemed himself, and then he attunes back to the weapon and he becomes the man that he once was. No. One of the most important things when it comes to role play is that you have to be flexible, right? You have to be flexible. I talk about this all the time when it comes to building a character. Building a character, it needs to be like a skyscraper, right? A skyscraper is not foundationally just built straight up and it just stays as stiff as possible as the wind hits it. No, it has to be able to wiggle and bend with the wind and tilt and all that sort of stuff. I mean, not too much, but that to me is the point of a character and what drama should feel like. Drama, tension, story, the way other characters interact with you should move your character, and you need to be flexible to go with the direction that everything's going. And the tension and the drama that comes from that is how much can you take of being pushed in a certain direction before your character breaks, before your foundation breaks, right? That's drama, you know, all capital letters. So just keep that in mind. It's to be flexible, because I don't know where I'm going to take this character. I don't know where he's going to end up now. You know, who knows where I'm going to take them. I could be like, hey, George, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe I switch his fighting style completely to archery, right? Maybe we take another look at his feats, right? Maybe we swap this out, or maybe because he's been doing this so much, he learns another feat, right? Maybe he learns sharpshooter. Who knows, right? But keeping it open and flexible to that, and being open to what is going to come next, is also going to help. So just keep that in mind, gang. While you're out there, you're playing your fighters, you're playing your barbarians, right? You're playing your paladins. Beyond the spells, take a good look at the armor you're wearing. Take a good look at the weapons you're choosing, the way that you fight, describing how they fight. Do they fight with such brutality? Is it to cause as much damage as possible? Or is it to be as precise and as lethal as possible, but try to cause the person as little pain as possible? So maybe when you describe a moment when they're angry and then they're just viscerally lashing out and, you know, aiming for the gut and aiming for all these places that wouldn't kill immediately, you can tell that something's off and there's a rage there that is not normally there. Who knows? But those are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're playing a martial character. And I think one thing I want to do for another, I think I want to make this like a kind of like a two-parter when it comes to discussing martial characters. I think the next part in this, I want to discuss the visual language that we use to describe combat. That's always been something I've been really engaged with as someone who's super into cinema and martial arts and studying and watching them. especially for descriptions that come to my table. Like when I am in a combat and I'm describing what's happening, in my mind, I'm seeing like the Raid 2 or something like that. I'm seeing Ipman, like I'm seeing all these different things inside of my mind. I'm seeing John Wick. Like I have all these visual references in my mind, and I'm looking at all these scenes and I'm trying to break it down into very specific detail. You know, I'm looking at jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I'm looking at all these different things and describing them in great detail and breaking them down what's on my mind to create that reference, to create that visual language so that it comes up in combat and I'm able to give some immersive and stellar descriptions that unify everyone's, you know, mental theater at the table. So I think that's what we're gonna work on next. I think that's where we're gonna take it next. And then I'm gonna work on also getting some guests in here to talk about some different characters, talk about some different perspectives of roleplay. But with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you again for watching. And you know, I really appreciate you all being here. With that being said, my name is Daniel K. Hargrove, also known as Daniel the DM. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, hype the video, whatever that means, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. With that being said, peace and love in and of itself are an active revolution. I'll see you next time. Peace.